Three, two. Welcome to the Process Podcast. I'm Chris, and in front of me is
Ed,
and behind Ed is
Alex.
Hi, Alex.
I'm speaking on behalf of him because you wouldn't hear him. He's not next to him.
Boom your voice out there, son. I had some quick feedback from our valiant listener, Mrs. Haynes, to speak up and to look more towards the camera. So we're doing that today.
Actually, her feedback was that your just voice is very low. So if you could just change your voice box altogether and just be a different person, I think she'd be really happy.
I don't see how my voice is that different from my real life anyway.
We've calibrated it now. I think we're good.
We're pretty good. We were practicing before the episode, so I think this is it right here. And I'll just try not to go into my low, like, nighttime voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So today we are talking about a few things. The most important thing is kind of managing work and play when we're on vacation, because you and I coincidentally took 3 weeks off and spent time outside of Coastal Fitness, outside of Hong Kong. Really, I'm just describing what it means to be on vacation.
Yeah, thanks. For those that don't know what a holiday is,
we get into a plane,
yeah,
into our assigned seats, and go off.
Technically, you can have a holiday or a vacation in your world and stay in Hong Kong, not actually leave the country.
That's true, but I mean, I think you even touched upon that subject too, of like doing small, like mini vacations where you would go like to a gym, a hotel gym in Hong Kong, and be outside. That was kind of a thing that you were doing, I believe, during COVID.
Yeah.
But this trip was like a fully fledged going to different countries kind of trip. And I guess we're going to talk about where exactly we went, why we went there, what we did, our learnings from it. But before we dive into that fully, my first day back into Coastal was this last Monday. So this is my second day. And I'm trying to figure out, am I back yet? Or do I still have what's called like a vacation hangover? For yourself, where are you at in terms of how back are you?
Well, actually, so just in terms of I find it very weird saying vacation. So every time you say vacation, I'm just gonna say holiday.
Is this is it a British English thing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you say a holiday hangover, do you mean like, is it a holiday blues, like you're really missing being away? Or is it just like combination of jet lag, sleep, travel, and maybe some holiday blues?
I guess it would be all of those things because
Okay, yeah.
I'm still on the tail end of my own jet lag as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, where are you at on that spectrum?
Well, I think I had an amazing time. I'm sure we're going to talk about what we did and why it was amazing, but I wouldn't say that when we left. So I was actually away for just over 2 weeks, and you were away for 3. I went 2 weeks and 2 days. I lost a couple of days traveling, of course, as did you. But I was ready to come back. Was I ready to come back? If you just said I could, if someone had said to me, "Okay, Ed, you've got an extra week of holiday," I would have happily taken it. But at the same time, the moment I stepped on the plane, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm actually really excited to get back and get back to work. So I would say that there wasn't really like a holiday blues in the sense that I was really missing being on holiday and I was dreading being back at work. That wasn't there for me. I was actually just very grateful for the time I had away. Also very excited to be back. So I guess the only like suboptimal feeling was just like feeling like crap because of jet lag.
Right.
And I would say it took me so I arrived last week. So I arrived on the Saturday night. The Sunday through to the following Sunday, I had a pretty disruptive sleep schedule. I would say that the first night, I think I slept 2 hours. And then the next night I slept 7. And then I basically went back and forth between those two sleep schedules for a whole week. So it would literally be like 2 to 3 hours, 7 to 8 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 7 to 8 hours for about a week. But I would say that by Friday, I was not feeling like the fogginess in my head. So I would say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, always pretty big work mornings for me at home here in Hong Kong. I've got important stuff that I need to do that's quite thought demanding. So, Monday's writing all my programs for my individual clients. And then Tuesday is writing all the programs for Live, Perform, Compete for the next week. Wednesday is doing the elite program for the next week. And I really struggled through them. I struggled I think because I was just so mentally tired.
Yeah.
I was like ready to do it, and I sat down in front of my computer, like gone through all my morning routines, ready to like crack into a couple of hours of good work. And I just like look at these spreadsheets and just be like, oh my God. It was like I felt like I'd forgotten how to program, but I knew I hadn't forgotten how to program. It was just I couldn't like tap in to the creative part of my brain to write good stuff. So I remember like poor Ant, I wrote out all the Tuesday program, and it's Ant's job to he uploads all the programs, he double checks them, puts them onto WhatsApp to deliver to our athletes, our affiliates, and our online subscribers. So he did all that after the Tuesday, and then I woke up on Wednesday, and because I had one of those crappy sleeps where I was up for most of the night, I was just thinking about the program that I'd written the night before, and I was just like, it just was terrible. I was just like picking apart all these things that I'd written on that program that I wasn't happy with. So I woke up next morning, Wednesday, and basically went back to the program and changed like more than half of it. Poor Ant, I messaged him, I'm really sorry. You got to go back in and change all that. That's a really time demanding job for him. So I felt bad.
So you have all this like work that you're trying to power through in this kind of foggy mental state. And like the call is because I had the same situation is, do I just power through and just hit my deadlines and get through with it now that I have the time to do it and I set the time, or because I know this is going to be pretty low quality work, just walking into it, I would know that, walk away from it and
Yeah.
revise it at another time.
The thing is, I didn't have that option because all of our programs are reliant on me doing that job
Okay.
because I'm doing it for the next week. So
Right.
before I went on holiday, I programmed 3 weeks in advance, but by the time I came back, I had to get back on schedule again. Um, and I also knew that because I was waking up about 2 o'clock in the morning, I knew that if there was ever going to be a time where I'd be mentally sharpest, it's going to be in the morning.
Yeah.
So I knew I basically had a sweet spot at around 6 o'clock where if I don't do it now, I'm never going to get this done today because I'm just going to get more and more tired. And I was basically hitting 2, 3 p.m. and like really struggling to stay awake in the office. So I knew that if I didn't do it then, even though I wasn't feeling that creative, like it was only going to get harder and harder and my quality would have just got worse and worse. So I kind of just had to suck it up and just hope that my body would get back to a regular rhythm in the next week or so. And so now in week 2, I feel great. Like I've had a really productive start to the week. I felt really sharp with my programming. I've had really good energy throughout the day. I'm not having those mid-afternoon crashes. So they do say that as a general rule, for every hour time difference is a day lost. So I came back from 7 hours time difference. So actually that worked out almost perfectly. 7 days and 7 hours, and then I kind of bounced back, and I'm pretty on a pretty regular sleep schedule now.
Okay. I guess it'll be important and helpful to know kind of the context for our own journeys and what that jet lag would have looked like. So let's just kind of dive right into it. It's like where we went and how long we were
Well, no,
there
before
for.
that, I want to ask you about
Yeah.
your holiday hangover
Well, I guess that's the context is
because you're actually probably still in it.
yeah. I got back last Thursday, so as of this recording, that was less than a week ago, and I was in California, which is about 15 hours of a time difference. So I was there consistently the entire time. Didn't go anywhere else besides that time zone. And traveling to California wasn't that bad. I probably had 2, 3 shit nights sleep. But because, you're on holiday mode and you're seeing your family, that kind of pushed me through of like, I have limited time, but I have all this fun stuff to do and I get to kind of see my family. I get to have all these exciting experiences. I don't usually have things that are out of my routine. So that kind of gave me that untapped energy to make it through and then kind of get over my jet lag or just like not really pay attention to it
Mm.
so much.
Yeah, I just find on that when you're on holiday and there's less of a structure and routine,
Yeah,
it's much more forgiving when you have bad sleep
for sure.
because there's nothing pressing that really needs to get done, or
Yeah,
there's nothing that's really demanded of
right.
you. But that same night's sleep back in your regular routines of life and work,
Yeah.
totally
I
different.
mean, the classic example was I was trying to really pay attention to the Olympics when the first week I got into California because that was like right when the opening ceremony started, and there was a lot of good competition. I'm a huge fan of the swimming competitions, so I was trying to pay attention to the 1500, which is like I don't know, it's like a 10-minute race or something like that, and I just couldn't make out who's where, how many laps people were at, and I just kind of stopped and I kind of looked at it on Instagram the next day. So there's no pressure for my head to be in a cognitive space, so to speak. But here, trying to write programs for my own clients as well as work on, managing our subscriptions and uh, our podcast notes and all these little things related to the job, knowing that you have to do this. I
Yeah.
remember I was trying to write a title and description for last week's episode. And then by the fourth sentence, I was writing actual nonsense of things that were not related to the episode. I think I just wrote a factoid about like American Girl dolls I don't know why that came up in my head, but then that just came up on the sentence about
Okay,
the
buddy.
CrossFit Games. It was so weird because I closed the computer and said, I'll just revisit this. Like I can't write anymore. I
Yeah.
opened up my computer and then it was talking about like, you know,
Your
like,
fetishes.
yeah, sure. It was about like, like the history of porcelain dolls in the United States. And I think that was the catalyst for that was I visited, I don't know why we're going there now. I visited my best friend's house and his mom had a habit. I don't know if it's a habit. She had a passion for collecting porcelain dolls and then putting them all over the living room.
That's very scary.
Very scary. And
I like little dolls.
yeah,
Ever since watching Chucky,
yeah,
I do find them very scary.
with good reason too, because
Yeah,
his mom had them in all different sizes, but they all had that dead stare,
that's
where they're
terrifying.
just not looking at anything in particular, but just looking out. And then I slept over his house once in the living room, and I swore to God, I thought I saw it moving. And then I ran to someone's room, and then they just never let me live that down. I was about 16 at the time. I'm
Uh,
just kidding. No, I was like 15. But anyway, had just visited his house, and then I think that was just something that was like spinning around in my subconscious when I was writing this title and description. But what I'm saying is when I got back to work here, yeah, there was like a good 4-day stretch when I really couldn't do much except the bare minimum. Um, and yeah, it was very frustrating. And I know that going into these kinds of situations where I'm coming back from holiday and I have things to do, and that's just the nature of work, right? But I really wish I could have planned this out. And the reason why I wanted to make this the discussion today, not only because we coincidentally had the same uh, circumstance of being on holiday at the same time, right when we're getting really busy with the fall schedule of CrossFit in Asia, which is really big, that you and I are really involved in with anything from, the China CrossFit scene to what's going on in our affiliates in Jakarta and in Manila, the Waddoff, and the All Out Games, getting ready for the Asia Fitness Championships. There's so much going on that, leaving right before that, there's a lot of pressure there. So how do you manage work and life when you have, such a long section of time where you're not going to be working? And you just said yourself, one of the things that you did before is prepared. You got 3 weeks of programming in. That way you wouldn't have to touch it. And one thing that you did that was really surprising to me, because we talked about it just before you left, was whether or not you'd leave your laptop here while you were on vacation, while you were on holiday, and you decided to leave your laptop. So it's really interesting the way that you and I manage that because, just kind of looking and passing, I think you and I managed it quite differently. And I want to see what the results of that was. And like on reflection, if what we did was a good idea or a bad idea, any tips and tricks on doing this in the future?
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode with a quick shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. I've been using this journal for 2 years and it has made a massive impact on my physical, but mostly my mental well being. It is a guided journal backed by neuro and behavioral science, which I actually didn't know at the time. It has questions for you to answer at the start of the day, at the end of the day, end of every week, end of every month. And it's brought so much self awareness to me of the things that positively and negatively impact my life. So if you're someone who cares about your physical and your mental well-being, which I think you do because you listen to this podcast, then go and grab yourself a Today Well Spent. Use the discount code THEPROCESS, one word in capitals, to get your discount.
So,
Yeah.
first question is um, knowing that you had about 2 weeks and change,
Yeah. Just
how,
round up to 3 weeks because I think, yeah,
yeah,
roughly what.
let's say 3 weeks. Knowing that that was about to happen, what did you do in your work to be able to prepare for that and to be able to leave feeling good about it?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe backstory to that is like why I decided to not work on holiday.
Yeah, there you go.
So this was a first holiday in 15 years. I genuinely mean that because I thought about it. First holiday in 15 years that I haven't taken my work with me. I would say first, like prolonged holiday, so longer than 3 days. Um, and I think the reason I decided I wanted to do that was because leading up to this holiday, I took a couple of really short breaks, like 3 day holidays. I had a boys' trip to Vietnam for one of my mates' birthdays where we went and played golf for 3 days over a long weekend. And then I went to Thailand, to Phuket with my parents and my wife for another 3 days. It was like we had 2 long weekends and I actually went away. And I never really do that. I never do short holidays. I'm never someone who like looks at a calendar,
Yeah.
identifies public holidays and books a holiday. I've always been like, okay, you're either kind of, it's a long holiday or it's a nothing. What's the point type thing. Um, so the interesting thing was going on that boys' holiday, for I think it was 4 days actually. It was like it wasn't the ideal like rejuvenating holiday. We were
Yeah.
boozing pretty hard. Boozing in the afternoon on the golf course, and we'd booze pretty hard.
Some people would say that is ideal,
Yeah, well,
actually.
okay. So, but when I say that's why I said rejuvenating, I
Yeah,
didn't use the word ideal or like
I
fun
see.
or actually, it's not rejuvenating in the sense that normally on a holiday, if you want to come out rejuvenated, you chill, you relax, you eat good food, you do a whole lot of nothing basically.
Mhm.
Um, so I went there, and that meant I wasn't sleeping very much as well. So I'd say some nights I was sleeping just a few hours and getting up and getting after the day. But I came back after that 4 days and felt amazing. Didn't do any work while I was there because it kind of happened to fall into a weekend, and
Yeah.
all my jobs, all the main pieces I needed to get done, I did them already. Right. So again, a bit of preparation leading into it. And I came back and I just felt so rejuvenated. It was like I needed I needed a bit of like a social fill up in terms of like just hanging out with my mates, just having a good time was what I needed, and just like letting go completely of work and everything. And I think that I kind of came back from that. I was like, that's interesting. I would have thought that 4 days of boozing and partying, I would have been really depleted. But I actually came back, training felt great, just felt awesome. So I was like, that's okay. That's something to be said about that little break. So then myself and my wife, we'd already booked it a long time. It was actually her idea. She said, like, why don't we go away to Phuket? Your parents are going to be down there. We can hang out with them for a few days. We've got a public holiday coming up. So yeah, let's do it. So we've kind of put it in the diary. I think that was like 3 weeks after that Vietnam trip. And it also happened to fall on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So again, it wasn't that much. It wasn't too hard for me to get my work done before that, just a couple of extra hours here and there. And I could really step away. And again, I went there for 3 days, didn't do any work, didn't look at a computer, and I came back feeling so refreshed.
Yeah.
I do also remember just before that holiday feeling like, because that 3 weeks between the two holidays was like intense. It was a lot of work. That was, Monday to Friday, but also weekends as well. So I remember coming up to that Phuket trip feeling like, oh, I'm actually really looking forward to a small break.
Yeah.
Just 3 days was all it took. And I came back and I felt amazing. It was like totally recharged physically and mentally and spiritually.
And in each of those 3-day stretches, what was the temptation like to do any kind of work, even on your phone through WhatsApp or something like that?
So I think yeah, I guess like checking messages, that was still a part of it, but I
Mhm.
was like giving minimalistic responses.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't something urgent, I would just say, hey, I'm on holiday. I'm gonna mark this and get back to you in 4 days time or 3 days time. Obviously, if it's something urgent, which does sometimes happen, right? You can't plan for those things. It might be work related, business related, or it might be, personal related.
Yeah.
In those things you just got to deal with, regardless if you're on holiday or not. So
Yeah.
I always kind of give a bit of a buffer to know that that might happen. But I think the big takeaway here was that all it took was 3 days of total disconnect from my job, and I felt like a different person. And so I think because of those two experiences, a couple months before this summer holiday, made me really think what I wanted to get out of this holiday. And I said, if that's how good I could feel after just a few days, what would it feel like? Almost like an experiment. What would it feel like if I took 2 full weeks off from work? Didn't do any. And bear in mind, I'd never done that before. So I didn't have evidence from past ed because I've always brought my laptop with me, always done a bit of work here and there. So I think that's a context that's important before this. So I'd very much committed to that. And I guess going back to your question, well, what do you do? What's the advice for that? I think I had to just really look at all the job responsibilities that fell on my plate. And I had to really ask myself, out of these job responsibilities, what can be handed over to one of my team members?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having a great team. And then what job responsibilities do I need to do and take care of myself? And then you kind of just take everything and you kind of divide it into those two boxes. And at the end of the day, you got a list of things that it's like, okay, these need to be handed over
Yeah.
appropriately, and these need to just be prepared ahead of time. And I did that, probably about 4 weeks before my holiday. So I'd made two big lists
Nice. 4
that
weeks.
said, yeah, over the next 4 weeks, I need to make sure that these things are handed over and the people taking over have the skill sets and the know-how to be able to do it to the standard I'm happy with. And for the things that I need to prepare, like programming, looking after clients, etc., I just need to do those things now. I knew I needed 4 weeks. It was
Yeah.
things like podcasts. Like we were lucky that our team stepped in, but I knew that if I'm going to be away for two, we need to make sure we stay ahead of our
Mhm.
podcast. what to expect program, for example. Like every week we put out update videos. I need to
Right.
get all those done. That takes time. I can't just put it on, our content guy a day before I leave and say, do all this. So I basically had those lists, and that just kind of gave me ease of mind, right? It was like, okay, I got a plan, and now there's less pressure to have to get this stuff done in a last minute squeeze. Because essentially I had to do 3 weeks of work because even though I was away for two and a half, I had to think about the week after I got back as well. So yeah, just planning that far ahead really just gave me peace of mind to know that, okay, because something else I'm always thinking about is like the worst thing to do, and I do it all the time. I think we all do it, is that we cram so hard before we leave. You're trying to just tick all the boxes, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, and then you get to holiday and you burn out. You're
People
wiped.
in that situation, people often get
Yeah,
sick
they get
on the
sick,
first few
right?
days
Yeah, the
of vacation.
sympathetic system is so
Yeah,
heightened just because you're just on full fight or flight, right? Adrenaline's pumping
right.
through your body. You're just trying to get all this work done, and then you get on a holiday and you're like, oh, you kind of just let it all out,
Yeah,
and then suddenly your body's like, okay, here's a sickness, here's an injury, here's all the things that you've been getting the last few weeks,
yeah.
and I've done that more times than I can count on two hands, and I was like, I just don't want to do that. Even last summer holiday, we went to Europe and I didn't do what I did. I worked pretty much the whole holiday, and I got really sick on the fourth day, like really bad flu and fever. And I think it's exactly because of this.
Yeah.
Just worked way too hard in the lead up. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be healthy on my holiday.
What you're saying is, I think a running theme of our discussion is going to be um, what Ed did and what Chris did
Yeah.
as being two very different things. Because the takeaways I'm getting there is you made a list of all of your responsibilities, divided things that can be delegated to others on your team and trusted to other people on your team, and therefore empowering them, and increasing trust and increasing skill sets, leveling people up on the team. And what are things that need to be done, especially with the urgency, and then figuring out how do I do this within the next 4 weeks. And that's why you're saying 4 weeks, because you don't want to get it done in a week before you leave. You want to get it done with a buffer of, in case things go south or in case anything at all, just be able to manage it in a way that you can do it with a level head and not with so much stress.
Yeah. And
Um,
potentially ruin the start of your holiday
yeah.
because you've done that to yourself. Yeah.
On the other hand, I didn't ruin my holiday by doing this, but I remember maybe like a week or two before I was set to start my own holiday, you said, Chris, and because we have our Monday, Thursday catch ups, you should probably take a look at all your responsibilities on the team, think about what you need to do, what you can give to others, and then leave, with that clear sense of what your job responsibilities are. And that way you're not just trying to do so much
Yeah.
either
Basically,
beforehand
Chris, make
or,
sure you actually give yourself a holiday,
yeah.
was what I was saying.
And I said, yeah, that sounds good. And then you checked in on me at like later that week and you asked me how I'm doing on that list. And I think I wrote like 3 responsibilities. And then it became so hard for me to like figure out how to describe my responsibilities that I just I couldn't revisit that list. And then I had all these other things to do because I have like, just my rotating responsibilities on the team. By the time my takeoff date started, I actually had a one-on-one consultation call with Shane. Shout out to Shane, who eventually joined the solo course for our individual coaching course. I had that call at the Hong Kong airport in like the food court, where he's seeing behind me people they like with their rollaway bags and my daughter running around with like a soda because we're like, whatever, we're on holiday now. And I'm working 30 minutes before takeoff. And that became like the whole thing. Like I was essentially working the entire time. Um, and I still don't know how I feel about that. But looking back, I really do wish I gave myself the time to just take a step back, think about what my job is, what it looks like, which I think generally speaking is probably good practice to see what value do I bring to this organization? What are the things that I'm doing? What are the things I'm doing regularly? That way it helps really lay out clarity, at least for me, but clarity for you as well of my total value. But in that immediate sense too, what can I not do, right, for this 3 week holiday, and give to other people? And that's one thing I wish I could have done.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said is basically what we have our students do on the individual coaching course in stage 6, right? They have to basically write down a list of everything they do on a daily basis, all their job responsibilities, all their tasks. And I think in a lot of our roles, especially in smaller organizations, we end up taking on a lot of different jobs. And, that's the nature of the growth of the small business, is that you have lots of generalists doing lots of different things. And as we all start to break at the seams, we can't take it anymore. And the business is at that next inception point of growth.
Yeah.
You then bring in the next person who's a bit more
Mm.
specialized, who can then take off the things that maybe you're not so interested in or not so good in. And that's how the businesses are kind of grown over time. So the nature of our jobs are quite varied, and probably a little bit less specialist. But I think, yeah, going back to you, I mean, okay, take yourself back to that day where a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks before your holiday, I asked you, "Hey, Chris, like, have you thought about, taking some time off and handing these job responsibilities over?" Did you think, nah, it's not going to be a big deal, like I can just work on holiday? Have you always worked on holidays, or maybe your jobs in the past haven't required you to work on holidays? Or was this like a very new, novel stimulus for you? What was
Um, before this, I was working in corporate for 7 years. Yeah, and that's the kinda job where I'm not really personally invested in the task. I'll do my best and I will hit my KPIs and I will deliver on my responsibilities to the team and to the project, all these things, right? But am I actually personally emotionally attached to what I'm doing on this spreadsheet? No, not at all. It's like I know no one's gonna really look at it afterwards. This was working on the process programming on this team. It's the first time since my teaching days, which was my first career, where I felt personally invested in everything that I did, right? So like every project that I wrote for kids, every learning unit that I wrote for my humanities team, I was really passionate about it and I wanted to see what would come of it, and how kids would play around with it, what they would learn about the unit and about themselves, all these cool things. And I find myself having that same relationship to my work here, where I'm getting very personally invested, not getting, I have been, which is the reason why I joined the team in the first place. Because the things that I'm doing here is the things I love to do anyway. So part of it is just, I really like what I'm doing. Even little things like titles and descriptions and time codes that I sent off to Alex about, our social clips. You gave me a challenge of like, try to grab someone's attention the first 5 seconds of a social clip for our podcast. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been hunting down for that and it can get really challenging and frustrating. But on the whole, it's like what I love to do. So I just really, really like doing it. And I think that was one of the things is I just didn't want to relinquish it because it's just part of, in a sense, kind of who I am.
did you also think, though, because I love doing it, I don't need a break from it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely an element of that.
Yeah. Because I definitely, I think that way of thinking was why I've always worked on holidays in the past. I've just kind of said to myself, like, well, I love my work.
Yeah.
Why do I need to take a break from it?
Right. So then like what I want to hear is if that's true, how do you in a healthy way pull yourself away from it and not feel like you're losing a sense of yourself or a sense of your passions? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if this is what you love and you just stop doing it because you're in holiday, then what is a space where I'm in where I'm not doing what I love?
Yeah. So I'm going to rephrase your question.
Yeah.
So just to say it back to you. So is a question, if your work is so closely attached to your identity
Mm,
and the things that make you happy, maybe
yeah.
those are two different things actually. Let's say identity is a question. If your work is so closely attached to your identity, what does it feel like, or how do you actually step away from it? Does that challenge your sense of identity?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
either as another example would be, I love coaching and I love giving feedback
Mm,
and having that relationship with my clients. So that's what I was doing on a regular basis as well. So I was like, I mean, I just have so much to
yeah.
share anyway, and I love to ask questions and I love to see how people are doing and I love reposting their their progress. Why don't I just do it on holiday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, good question. I think, well, I think my answer to that question is that I think less and less of my identity is attached to my work these days. Really was for a long period of time. And I think now I'm at a point in time where I really look at me as Ed, the human being, that happens to have this business and do this thing on a day-to-day basis, has a wife, likes all these things, and that's who I kind of identify myself as much, much more. So there isn't really any, I don't feel like there's any loss of identity now when I'm going on holiday. So I think maybe some examples of how the previous self would have been on a holiday. It would have, because I attached myself to my work so much, I almost wanted my team to see that I was working on holiday.
Mhm.
So I would deliberately work and make it known that I was working by like sending email updates or
Yeah.
sending WhatsApps, or I don't know, maybe even posting on Instagram that I'm doing this work in this
Was
place.
that you knew that doing it, or was that
No,
a
this
subconscious
is me
thing?
reflecting
I
back,
see.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess it was an insecurity, and this was me covering up for my insecurity, or feeding my insecurity, I should say. So for sure, I did that so many times for so many years. Um, but I think now I think that isn't there, and that's not there because I just worked really hard. Because I identified that that was something that was a part of me that I didn't like. It was kind of governing my life in a way that I felt wasn't healthy. And I also didn't want my team to emulate that as well. I want my team to be fully secure in who they are as people and not have their job be something that's so closely attached to them. Because I know firsthand experience what that can be like,
Yeah.
and how, fatiguing it can be,
Yeah.
and how it can take away from other aspects of your life,
Okay.
So that's what you're like,
That was
yep,
like that's
yep,
what you were trying to
yep.
do for me when you asked me
That
to
Yeah,
tell
that
you.
is really what without explicitly saying it, because you're on your own journey and you've got
Yeah,
to make your own choices,
for
right?
sure.
So I guess this was a learning opportunity for me in hindsight,
Yeah.
and I think you've now got your own learnings from this experience and the choices that you made, and I think that's what life's all about. You got to let people make their own decisions and make their own choices, and be here like we are right now to have those conversations, to reflect and learn on it. So I guess I've just the experience you just had, I've had that, and
Mhm.
I don't want it anymore. So I guess the sense of identity, that's not a thing anymore. Obviously, a really important part to that as well, though. I guess this is less about identity and it's more just allowing yourself to be successful and having time away. Is I was really honest in communicating it to the people around me, right? So I communicated to the team well in advance to say that, I really would love to not work on this holiday. I have some strategies in place, and part of that strategy is you helping me out by covering me. Would that be possible? And sometimes some people are like, you know what, I've got so much on, I can't do that. I'm like, cool, no worries at all. Can I go to someone else who I think would be appropriate for that job? And again, this is just the amazing thing about having a great team, is that this team genuinely cares about each other, right? We're not saying yes to doing each other's work because we're expecting something in return. We're just doing it because we know it's the right thing to do and we want to help each other. And I was just really explicit and honest and said, I would really like to try and have a holiday here. It's something I've really struggled with in the past, but I want to try it. And if you guys could help me do that, it would be amazing if you could help me with this work. So I was really honest there. I was also really honest to my clients. I said, guys, I'm going to be going away for 2.5 weeks. Here's my dates. And I'm going to really try and have this to be time totally away from my work. I would have been petrified to say that years, a couple years ago. And I would have just thought, oh my God, what are they going to think of me as a coach? I'm going to come back. They're all going to fire me. They're going to be like, coach is so lazy. He thinks about himself and not
Yeah.
about me. So I sent that message again a couple of weeks in advance to say, on these dates I'm going to be out of town. If there's anything you need, of course, I'm going to be here on WhatsApp. If you really need me, you can call me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be checking in on your results. I'm going to assign you to my other coaches,
Yeah.
right? So that's another thing I delegated or kind of put on. My other coaches will be checking in your performances. So they'll be giving you feedback on all your results. So I definitely gave them a
Mm.
solution. They're still paying customers, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just say, hey, in my opinion, I don't think it's right to just say, hey, I'm just not going to check in for 2.5 weeks. Good luck.
Yeah.
Because I should really give them probably some form of compensation, some form of reduction in their payment if that was the case. But I provided a solution, right?
Yeah.
All your training is going to be done ahead of time, and my team is going to be checking in on your results.
Right.
And you know what? Every single one said, they all said, "Good on you.
Yeah.
Like, you deserve the time off. Have a great holiday, and I can't wait to speak to you in 2.5 weeks and hear how it went."
That's so funny because I had a different version of the same conversation with one of my clients.
Mm.
So Fran, who's like my first client,
Yeah,
so she's been my client for like 3 years now,
yeah,
ever since I started the journey of coaching, and she just saw it, and I think she comes from her background too is she has a very fulfilling job in the corporate space. Um, and she also takes care of herself. She goes on holiday. She actually just came back from holiday for 2 weeks or so in the U.S. And when she saw me getting ready to go on holiday, she said, "Look," I didn't initiate the conversation. She said, "Look, just take the next week or so. You don't need to give me anything right now. Like we're all good. You are working way too hard, and you give me a lot of good feedback, and it's more than it's more than I ever expected. I really appreciate our relationship. Just take the time off." And I never would have initiated that conversation myself. So I definitely appreciated that she reached out to me and did that. But the other part was like, I, I can't believe I didn't recognize that, you know? So that's another thing I need to work on is that if you kind of, if you don't bring anything up, right? Just like in any other relationship, no one can really read your mind. So if you feel a certain way, like I really love to coach, but I want to be able to step away from it for a little bit just to take care of myself. Um, what can we do to make that work? Then that honest and open conversation would be helpful specifically for that situation of being gone for 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm sure, as I'm sure it sounds like what you're talking about, it helps with that trust and that relationship between you and your client of knowing that that person is being taken care of by you because you are being honest about where you're going to be unavailable and
Yeah.
what that looks like beforehand, during, and after, right? That really helps in the long
Yeah,
run.
I think we had a conversation, related to our own work when we were away. But it's great to identify problems, but you got to provide solutions.
Yeah.
And if you're just given a problem, that's not really helpful for
Yeah.
anyone. So the problem in this case is I'm going to be away and I'm not going to be able to write your program on a weekly basis.
Mm.
Instead, it's going to be done in advance and I can't give you feedback.
Yeah.
The solution is this, I'm going to have my team, I'll write all my programming ahead of time and my team will be checking in. And for emergencies, I'm still here.
Mhm.
So, should you need, just call me. And I mean, 2.5 weeks, no one called me.
Yeah.
No one called me. No one messaged me.
Yeah.
My team, did a great job of looking after my clients and it was
And
all good.
everyone's doing fine now, right?
And everyone is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was at the end of the day, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of, a 10-year relationship with a client, which is
I
what
know.
it is for some of my clients, it's nothing. And you know what's just funny is that right now it's a Thursday, right? So it's almost been 2 weeks. In a few days' time, it's going to be 2 weeks since I've been back. And I was speaking about this with one of the coaches here, but also with my wife, and we were basically having a conversation, which was, does it feel like time goes faster on holiday, or does it go slower
Yeah.
compared to what real life is? Real life, no, sorry, but your normal work life,
Well, I think I know what you mean, though.
yeah. And this last 2 weeks since I've been back has literally disappeared. I feel like I've been back for 2 days, and it's been almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I would say that my life in Hong Kong just flies by scarily fast. I think a lot of that is because I have, a very stacked schedule. That's by choice.
Yeah.
I love to be productive. I love my job. I get to do loads of cool stuff. And so my day from wake up to really getting home is like back to back to back to back to back. And I just find that days and weeks just disappear so fast. And I'm like, I can't believe it's a weekend already.
Yeah.
However, on holiday, I felt like it went really slow. And that was a
Same.
good thing. Like I wanted it to go slow. There's times in younger me where, a week going slow was a bad thing, but now a week going slow is a good thing.
Right.
And I think, just being deeply present in everything that I was doing whilst I was on holiday. I'm very deeply present when I'm here with everything I'm doing. It's just there's a lot more busyness. There's a lot of like, you're on an agenda, you're going from one thing to another, you got deadlines you
Yeah.
can't miss, you got to be in a certain place at a certain time. That's basically
Absolutely
how
right.
the whole day works,
Yeah.
right? Whereas on a holiday, it's just you're just going with the flow.
Right.
It's just, and yeah, where life just went by. 2.5 weeks felt like a month. I felt like I'd been away for a month or more. Whereas, when I compare it to time here, it's nothing. So where I'm going with this is that when you're away and you're on your holiday, you sometimes think about life back home and what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh my God, like I'm not there like
Right.
for the team, I'm there for the business, I'm not there for my for my clients. But then now I'm actually here. I'm like, God, this last 2 weeks has flown by. If I put myself in my shoes now and think about me being on holiday, like it would have felt like 2 days and I would have been back from a holiday.
Yeah.
That's what it's like for most of us
Yeah.
in the chaos of life,
Right.
right? We think when we're on holiday that, oh, everyone must be missing me, like things must be going, business isn't going to be as optimal as I'm there. I'm like, no, life just goes on.
Right.
People just get on with it.
100%.
And it's totally fine. 2 weeks is actually nothing in the grand scheme of things.
It's a good reminder. I mean, I would even say, even though for us, about 3 weeks gone feels like it's a long that's a long-term thing, yeah, on the grand scheme of things in terms of work. Like, that's a big chunk of time, that's nearly a month, but it's a good reminder that, yes, some places, especially here in Hong Kong, that is really a blip on the radar of life, as it were.
Yeah, and that's by design, right? We choose to do that. So I'm not. I want to make sure that that's not me saying that like life sucks. It goes so fast.
Right,
Like
right,
I
right.
choose to do this, and
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Let's switch gears real quick. Talking about work. The other thing I was interested in talking about is asking you about how you approached exercise in general, right? So you're moving around. Um, I didn't actually ask you to do this, but real quick, give us a quick TikTok of where you were and for how long during this whole time.
Yeah. So I went to Greece. I basically went to two countries. Went to Greece. Away for 2.5 weeks. Basically, half of that time was in Greece, half of that time was in Portugal. We just love European summers.
Yeah.
Cami, my wife, she's French, so I know that we're going to spend a lot of summers in France, and I love France, so I don't object to that. But before we do lots of summers in France, because we
Okay.
did it last time, we
Yeah.
wanted to go to some other places in
Makes
Europe.
sense.
Yeah, so we went to Greece first. We stayed in a place called Paros, which is an island, kind of a couple of islands over from like Mykonos and Santorini, which most people know. Her uncle and auntie, they don't have a house there, but they go there for their holiday every summer. They rent the exact same little apartment looking over this tiny little bay on a quiet side of Paros. And so like it's like a Hong Kong sized apartment. It's small with a little balcony, but it's very cute. Though them two and then myself and Cami. So we were there for 5 nights. Then we got the ferry to Athens. Wanted to go to Athens. I just wanted to go see all the historical stuff. I think never been to Athens. I've done a lot of reading on, the ancient Greeks, Stoicism, like that had a big part in my like, I guess my healing journey at some point in time. And so I kind of just wanted to see all that stuff. And then we went from there. We flew to Lisbon, drove down to the Algarve, stayed in a place called Lagos, which is amazing. Like very chill seaside town. And then we spent the last few days in Lisbon. So basically, in both Greece and Portugal, spent a couple of days in the capital city, and then most of the time in like by the sea and in countryside.
Okay. So you're bouncing around quite a bit.
Yeah, bounced around quite a bit.
So knowing that you're a person and I myself, we just like to exercise and that's an important part of our life. Um, how did you manage that while you were on holiday, and
Yeah.
what kind of experiences did you I know you posted something about dropping into a gym and kind of being able to test out some really cool equipment by, someone, an expat living in Greece or something. I
Yeah,
forget the details, but
yeah,
like, how did you approach exercise and what were the experiences that you had?
yeah. So I think, like, generally speaking, I like to move every day.
Mhm.
That's been a bit more of a philosophy from probably the last couple of years of life. What that means is, okay, when Ed was trying to be competitive, that meant, a pretty regimented training split
Yeah.
with a couple of pretty aggressive rest days in there. You train really hard, then you rest. Now, the intensity of my training is down quite a lot, but
Yeah.
I like to do something every day. So on a Thursday, that might be going to a simulator and swinging a golf club, or playing a round of golf, or going for a walk, or going for a swim, or something, or even just sitting on a bike. Actually, I never really do that. Thursday is basically always
Sure.
non-gym related
Yeah.
stuff. And then Sunday, I'll always do some movement, whether it's a walk, normally it's a swim. I might go to driving range as well.
Mhm.
So I basically, when I go on holiday, I just want to keep movement up, but I really categorize it as that it's movement. It's not really training. I'm not thinking about it from like an adaptation standpoint,
Okay, so you're
right?
not looking at, "Ooh, I need to have a push-pull day, I need to have a leg day, a bend day."
No, that comes into it, but that's not the focus when I'm holiday. The priority on holiday is if I can tie movement in with like exploration, that's a win. So right, it's like if I have a choice, I can be by the gym in a gym, which to be honest, like a Globo gym, you could be anywhere in the world. There's nothing really unique about it. Or I could be going for like a swim in the ocean and doing push-ups and air squats on the beach. I'm pretty much always going to go for the latter
Yeah.
because it's just different. It's just an experience. And I think a big part of why I love holiday is the importance of changing my routine, right? So if I just do the same things I do when I'm on holiday as I do in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
I'm not really changing up the routine in the environment. And therefore, it doesn't feel like it's a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's something I
100%.
really think about. So it's like I almost try, I still stay somewhat regimented with routines, somewhat loosely regimented, but I want to have different experiences, things I can't normally do in Hong Kong. So I really take it on kind of a day-to-day basis. Um, I'm always thinking about the next day,
Yeah.
and I never go to bed at night not knowing what my movement's going to look like the next day. There's always a rough plan there. But as well, I have to be a bit more intuitive with my body.
Yeah.
So a little funny story, like last year when we went to the south of France, I said I got sick and I blamed it at the start of this podcast. I blamed that sickness on just working too
Yeah.
hard. That's kind of half true.
Okay.
There's another half I haven't talked about. So in the first 3 days, Cami surprised me with a boat trip because I love boats. I love being on water. So we had this boat trip where we went paddleboarding and went to explore some of the small islands. Basically, a whole day out on a boat, really jet lagged still. We get back and it's really hot. We get back and we're walking back towards our hotel, and it's about 3, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. The sun is like baking, it's blaring down.
Yeah.
And we walk past this outdoor workout station. So there's like all these pull up bars and dip bars, and quite a few guys doing calisthenics. I was like, I'm going to do a workout. I hadn't done a workout for 3 days before that. So I was like, I want to just have a good little session now. So she was like, okay, cool. She basically sat, had an ice cream or something and watched me. and but I ended up like beasting myself. I did some like drop sets
Okay.
where I was going like pull ups into rows, and I did like some dips into push ups, and I basically gave myself heat stroke. So like by the end of
No
the
way.
workout, I was like lying on the floor
Yeah.
under a palm tree, being like, I'm gonna spew.
You were just way too excited to
I just
get the movement in.
I just like overcooked it.
Yeah.
Like I was genuinely cold sweats. I gone so pale. I was like, Cammy, I didn't want to make her panic. So I literally just like crawled over to this tree and just lay there, like genuinely on my back. Like I can't even sit up right now, thinking like I'm gonna spew. If I don't continue these deep breaths for another couple of minutes, I'm gonna throw up everywhere.
Oh, shit.
And then she eventually comes over and she's like, "Are you all right?" And I couldn't even talk. I was just like, just in a complete daze. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine." Anyway, we had to sit there for like 20 minutes before I was able to actually stand up. And then we walked home. And then when I started laughing, I was like, I think I just gave myself heat stroke. That's pretty bad. We had a laugh. And then the next morning, I woke up with like a horrendous flu. So I basically just like buried myself into a hole and just completely
Oh, good for you.
fucked my immune system.
I should have had some ice
Anyhow,
cream.
so good learning, right? So this holiday, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna do hard training. I'm just gonna go with the flow. Bear in mind the first few days, bit jet lagged, energy's low. So the first few days, I really just did outdoor stuff. We were lucky to be on a beach, so I just if I'm staying by the sea on holiday, I always like to start. I literally wake up and I walk straight down to the beach. So before breakfast, before coffee, before any of that, I go down to the beach. I do my joint rotations, and then I swim. I'll do
Beachside cars.
yeah, my cars, and then I just get all my joints moving. I mean, in Greece, no one wakes up till like 9, so you got the sun is rising. You've got like really glassy water, and there's no one there.
The whole place is yours for like
Literally,
3
you got a
hours.
private beach. It's
Oh.
so nice. The water's like really fresh, and so just jump into the sea, and I kind of just like swim around, and then as I'm swimming around, I just kind of decide what my movement wants to be for that day. So one day I did actually like a kind of like a 20-minute continuous AMRAP of just swimming and push up, nothing intense. Another day I just swam. Another day I like swam, and then I went on a little jog after that. So yeah, my general structure is though it's movement, but I want to also make sure that I'm maintaining some level of cardiovascular fitness, and I'm maintaining some level of strength. I don't really care about body composition so much. So I think on my holiday, so I was away for 16 days. I think I went to a gym 4 times. No, that's not true. 6 times. So I had 6 gym sessions in that time, which is probably a lot less than I would normally do here. But that was good. So in those, whenever I have the opportunity to go to the gym, so Paros, for example, had one tiny little gym on the island,
Yeah.
and it was like closed most of the time. So I had one day to get there,
Yeah.
and so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna hit all my big compound lifts. So I did like heavy pull ups, and it went heavy with everything because I know that if I'm doing body weight work, you can do high rep everything.
Yeah.
So if you get the chance to go to the gym, I want to do heavy stuff. So I was doing like 3s and 5s, no more than 6 reps on the exercises. I literally went pull up, bench, RDL, split squat.
Yeah.
That was pretty much
Are you
it.
being mindful of not overdoing it so that the next couple of days you're sore trying to move around in the city, or does that not matter so much in that moment?
Well, I think with strength weight, you're never that sore anyway because
Mhm.
it's more of like a neurological adaptation. But although in that session, because it was in Greece, there was no aircon, it was so hot.
Yeah.
I thought I'd repeated what I did in France.
Okay.
Like I genuinely, I think I was doing like they had the weirdest dumbbells. They had like it was like 7.5, like a normal 2.5 jump, and then it went 32.5, and then went to 40 kg.
40?
I did dumbbell RDL, so I didn't have barbells there.
Yeah.
So I like got my straps and I hit sets of, I don't know, 10 on the 40 kgs.
Yeah.
And after my last set, I was like, oh no,
Yeah, buddy.
I've done it again. And I remember just sitting like in the corner of the gym being like having flashbacks to last year.
Oh boy.
And I can't believe I've done this again. But luckily, after about 5 minutes, I was actually fine and it
Okay.
was all good. So yeah, my general structure was that. So the funny thing is, which I think people find surprising, is that I did not go to one CrossFit gym because
Was that
I know where we did the complete opposite. You went to like 10 CrossFit gyms, I think, right?
yeah, I went to a lot, and, so because I'm from California, and that's, like, where CrossFit started, I didn't start CrossFit until, I lived in China, because I started my career in Olympic weightlifting, and then ended up being at a CrossFit gym, and then I got pushed into doing CrossFit. Shout out Mayara. Um so when I was living in San Diego, I was more into triathlons. We had a group on to go to a CrossFit gym, and I thought it was really dumb. I think it was in the height of barefoot running, and people were wearing Vibram Five Fingers.
I
I just
literally
thought
just posted about that.
that was just so weird. I couldn't get into it.
You never bought a pair of
I got a
Five
pair
Fingers?
of like Vivo barefoot like trail running shoes. Actually, that I quite
Yeah.
enjoyed, but I ended up
But were
developing
Vivos around when Vibram were out?
around the same time. It was pretty early days for
Yeah.
Vivo. And then I
Myself and Ant, we bought 2 pairs of Vibrams,
and the Five
Five
Fingers
Fingers.
during CrossFit,
Yeah.
and you would do like everything in them.
I think we started.
Yeah,
I think we both and Brat's one of my other coaches as
yeah.
well. I think the day after we bought them, we went on a 5K run.
To be seen running in
No,
them.
just to be like, oh, apparently it's really good to run in them. So obviously
Your first running session in those was a 5K,
yep,
which is like you want to do like a 50-meter run to kind of
yep,
break things in.
100%.
So how was that?
It was terrible. I think we all like gave ourselves rhabdo in our calves.
Lovely. Because the
Yeah.
other thing is like stress fractures on your
Yeah,
metatarsals and
yeah,
stuff like
seriously, because
that.
you got your heel can't hit the floor, otherwise you break your heel.
Yeah, but
So
then everything goes
we ran on our toes
exactly.
for 5K. I think it was longer than 5K. I think it honestly was like 8K or
Yeah.
something.
So so that was the case
Yeah,
in point of like that's why I
they were
don't do
minging
CrossFit.
though.
So
They were
but then when I got back to California, on this recent trip, I've been doing the Open since 2017, so I'm really into CrossFit. I'm coaching CrossFit athletes, yada yada yada. I'm on this team. Anytime I open up Google Maps and I just like search gyms, there's like so many CrossFit gyms. I've been
And
around
were
for
they
such a
like
long
in
time.
close proximity to where you were?
Super close, like within
It's
15 minutes, right? And then I just dropped into one, and that was a good time. And then dropped into another, and then I
fifteen
started,
minutes driving.
yeah,
Okay.
because that's how it is in California, right?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
driving everywhere, and it's still a pretty small club. People know each other, um, and I just found myself always dropping into gyms. And then I did a 3-day stint at a 24-hour fitness, and I was doing my own thing. And then I had the same realization that you did of like, I could do this anywhere. And I'm just kind of in this big box with a
Yeah.
bunch of strangers, and I'm not talking to anyone. And it seems like no one really wants to talk to me. Although I did have a pretty interesting conversation with someone about, doing some Nordic hamstring curls. And he wanted some advice on how to do that. And I thought that was a really cool conversation. Aside from that, not much interaction. So anytime I went to a CrossFit gym, I got to hear people about their own stories. I talked to the owners about how they open their gym and like how it connects with themselves and their lives. So then it just became a thing of like, I guess I'm going to be dropping into gyms all the time. And
And are you just dropping in and doing the class WOD? Are you doing
so
doing
this
open
is
gym?
okay. This is a great question because I wasn't sure if I was going to continue with the process programming or with build because that's what
Yeah.
I'm on, and I've been on build for a couple months even before this, so I wanted to get that movement in. But I found myself in a situation of I dropped into a gym and I really wanted to do the Saturday tester at that time. It was like overhead squats and muscle ups, like stuff that I'd love to do. And the coach at the time, she was saying, look, maybe we can accommodate you. We have this partner workout, and maybe you can swap out some movements. And I said, well, how about this, and that? And she kept trying to help me out. And then at some point, she said, look, I'm really trying to help you, but I think if you're gonna drop in, you should just do the class as is. And I kept hemming and hawing about it, and I said, all right, fine.
I think you posted about this, didn't you?
What happened? Well, I posted it because the coolest thing happened was I got paired up with another dude. And when we were doing our warm up run, I asked him what he does here in Murrieta, and he said, "Oh, I'm in a band." I'm like, "Oh, cool! Like, there's a bunch of punk bands, like pop punk bands or whatever, screamo, you name it, in that area." And I asked him what kind of band, and he said, "Boy." And I asked him to elaborate, and he's a member of a boy band. And I said, "What's the name of your boy band?" He said, Full Circle Boys. Like, there's no way. So I Instagrammed, and there he was, and he's like the band leader, and he's like the social media manager. And we were talking about it, and I was asking him all these questions, like, why is this boy band guy doing CrossFit? Turns out it makes a total lot of sense because they're doing all this choreography, dancing around, jumping on stage, and I still have to, carry a tune. So they have to be able to have that cardiovascular health to be able to move around on stage all the time and still be able to like not be completely out of breath.
That's awesome.
So like we're part of our workout was 400-meter runs, and like I'm carrying full conversations with him. I'm like, this is probably helpful for you, right? That I'm asking you questions, you're talking, like, because I always ask questions, so it always falls on the other person to
Man, I would have been
say so
livid if
much.
you were my partner and you're trying to have a conversation with me mid workout. I'd be like,
Yeah,
mate,
yeah.
can we
So
just pick up the speed and
yeah,
win
so
this workout?
so Jagger, shout out to you for being an awesome partner. And the next week you left for a European tour. My point is I firmly believe that if you drop into a CrossFit gym and you insist to do your own workout, you are a dick.
Ah, yeah, I somewhat agree with that.
In the sense that when you go
But
into
do you not email before and ask
I
about the
did.
schedules and
Well, I'll
stuff?
do that, but I try not to overthink it. It's just like at some point, it's like what will be, right? And
Mm.
and that ended up becoming the thing where one gym I did deadlifts. The next day, the other gym they had deadlifts, and then the next Monday they had a heavy deadlift. And I was like,
See, now I couldn't do
in
that.
the programming sense of things, it was dumb. Like I did more devil's presses, more running in bad running shoes, more deadlifts than I would have ever planned for. In that sense, it wasn't smart. But the part that made it valuable for me was getting a sense of what the community is like,
Yeah.
And in California, people were so nice in the sense of like I'm there and people are asking for my name, shaking my hand, asking where I'm from, asking me all these questions that I don't usually ask people. And I think that's the most important thing when you go in. If you're a CrossFitter dropping into a gym, just just join the class because you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what kind of
Yeah.
workouts you're gonna have. You're gonna have this experience that's really cool. I did workouts with the owners. I mean, that was my priority was just being
Yeah.
able to have a good
So
time.
when I was talking about, when I'm on holiday, I just want movement every day.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I think I
What's
did
the difference between
because when I'm just doing movement every day, I'm being mindful of what I've done the day before
yeah,
and what I want to do tomorrow.
yeah,
Right. So it's not like a regimented plan that's written down, but the thought is in my mind.
yeah,
There's a bit of reflection and a bit of looking forward as to what I want to do.
yeah,
So okay, so I'll go back to like why I didn't go to any CrossFit gyms. So actually in Greece, so in Paros there's no CrossFit gyms. In Athens there are, but we were staying right in the middle of the city and all the CrossFit gyms were actually quite far away.
yeah,
So I actually went on to Google Maps, typed in CrossFit gyms Athens, got all of them, but they were all like a 30-40 minute drive.
yeah,
And it was like, well, I could just walk to one in 12 minutes, which would be like a bit of a. Actually, no, I had some interesting gym experiences in Athens. Just walk to one in 12 minutes or drive for 40.
yeah,
I'm like, well, a big part of holiday for me is spending time with whoever I'm with,
mhm,
right? Because it's just me and Cami.
yeah,
If I leave her, and she's totally fine by herself, she wants me to go to the gym. She knows it makes me really happy, but she's also by herself.
right.
Whereas when you're with the family, you can kind of leave the family together, I find.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
mean,
Do you
well, what
find
I
that?
did is I did it. I did 5 a.m. classes.
Oh my
So
god, you have 5 a.m. class on holiday?
yeah,
Man, you are mental.
well, because then when I got back, I would say my wife and my kids have a really good habit of sleeping in.
Five. I thought America didn't do morning classes, generally
Oh my
speaking.
god! Like there was the most crowded classes 5 a.m. class. I had a class of like 20 people at a 5 a.m. class.
Wow, so good. Anyhow, so my CrossFit gyms were a bit, and I don't want to spend a lot of my holiday traveling back and forth and just training.
Mm,
Like I want my holiday to be more about exploration, eating food,
yeah,
spending time. Yeah. So that's the summit's way of mine. So unfortunately in Athens, they were all quite far out. With that said, I still emailed three of them and I would always ask what their schedule's like. So if they say we've only got group, I'd be like, cool. No worries. I'll just go and do that. And I'll just make sure the days after it is a day for me where I can then just make up for it. You just program around what I've done already. So actually in Athens, there's no CrossFit gyms, but I think one of the days, I went down and I was just gonna go to like a Globo gym,
Yeah.
right? So I walked down through Athens, and this is well, everyone said at Athens can be a bit dodgy, right? You got to like really look after your stuff. Loads of pickpocketers, loads of gypsies who like have all these strategies to nick your stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to walk to this gym. It's about a 15-minute walk from city center. 15 minutes, you can already be outside of Athens. That's how small the actual Athens city center is. And then it's all sprawling like city outside of it. And so I'm walking down, and like the buildings go from really nice architecture to suddenly like spray painted walls, like broken shutters, smashed windows.
And then you're
And
clutching your
I'm walking
bag.
down the street thinking, and then suddenly like goes from being really busy
Yeah.
and like really touristic, and it's like then it's really quiet.
Yeah.
I'm walking down these roads, and I'm like, I've only been here for a couple of days and read all the rumors and all the you get in the taxi driver straight away, like, be careful. You get into your
Really?
hotel, they're like, be careful.
Wow.
Everyone's like, be careful, don't get, don't you have to have your bag on you all the time. So that just feeds this
Yeah.
idea that this is dangerous. So then, a guy can walk past, like open his newspaper to read, and you think he's pulling out a gun at you. Like that's so on edge. So I'm walking down, so I'm already thinking, "Oh, I'm getting a little far out of town here." But
Yeah.
anyway, gym should be here any minute. Get to the gym, it's closed. I'm like, okay, right, where? So go back onto Google Maps.
Right.
Where's the next closest gym? And so the next closest gym is literally there's nothing other than another 15-minute walk out of town, and it's called Pitbull Gym. And so I'm like, all right, I'm getting a Pitbull Gym. I made it.
You went for it. So
I'm already made it this far.
you made it 30 minutes out
Yeah,
ultimately.
so I already made it this far. So I started walking towards Pitbull Gym,
Yeah.
and again, like it's getting like real stereotypical sketch, right? So it's like now I'm in like in a mechanic yard where there's like broken down cars. There's like dodgy looking people everywhere. I have to cross under these subways, and there's like homeless guys like all shouting and talking to themselves. And I'm walking through this place, and I'm like, oh my god! And I'm thinking like, okay, I'm just gonna send Cammy my location just in case I don't come back. She knows where to look for me. That's what I was actually genuinely thinking. Get to this like derelict street,
Yeah.
and I rock up at the building on my Google map where it says Pitbull Gym is. There's no gym, just a closed shutter. I'm like, oh my god, what is wrong with people in Athens? I'm like, how is everyone saying they're open, then nothing's open? And then this guy walks out the building, and he's wearing like a sweaty tank top. I'm like, is there a gym in here? And he's like, yes, yes, yes. Go to second floor, walk up these stairs.
Yeah.
I walk up these stairs, and again, it's like just a derelict building basically. And there's just this door, it looks like just a home door. Has a sticker on it that says Pitbull Gym. So I walk in this gym, and mate, this is the most gangster gym
Yeah.
I've ever been in. Yeah, firstly, the owner ended up being a really nice guy. I had a good conversation with both gym owners, right? And talking about our gym owner journey. And he's this bald headed guy, roided up to the max. And
Right.
he's like just in the front of the gym, and I walked in, and like 6 heads just turned around and looked at me. And then they all went back to their machines. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's no one behind the desk. I'm like, what do I do? Just so I stood there. And then he eventually finished the set and came up and said, how can I help you? And then I'm like, oh, I just would love to work out. He's like, where are you from? Like, looked at me like, why are you in my gym? And I was like, Hong Kong. He's like, Hong Kong? And I'm like, oh, do you know, get people from Hong Kong? He's like, I've never had someone from Hong Kong in my gym. He didn't, obviously, he sounded very Greek. He's actually ended up being a really good dude. But this gym was so ghetto. And I was like, I can't believe I'm in this. It was on a second floor, like a base, like really low ceilings. Ended up, this guy's owned this gym for 27
Yeah.
years. He said all the equipment in there is the same equipment he got when he bought the gym 27 years
Wow.
ago.
Okay.
Super old school. Like
Yeah.
a TV that was like 3 foot deep, like hanging on a thing. Anyway, the next day in Athens, I go to this place called Strong 11, right? So it's basically this like I called the guy as well because I didn't really know if it was like, are they doing group classes? Is it an open gym? Basically Strong 11 looked like a strongman gym. So I called the guy and he basically just answered. He's like, what do you want? And I'm like, this is by the way, the Greeks can sound very like rude
Yeah.
and upfront, but it's just them
Is
being,
that something that you found out, or
it's just them being, it's just like when Greeks speak Greek, it's a little bit more monotone
I see.
and it just sounds aggressive. Same with Portuguese, actually.
It's hard to read.
Yeah, exactly. Hard to read. You don't know if they're happy or really fucking pissed off. So anyway, I went to this gym, Strong 11, and that's the place I was trying out equipment. Ended up really hitting it off with the owner. It was just basically me and him and one of his mates in the gym, and we ended up hanging out for like 2 hours. And then we ended up talking about the podcast because he wants to start a podcast. So kind of helping him out there. Ended up talking about how to create an apprenticeship program,
Yeah.
how to get more members into his gym.
Nice, man.
Basically, it turns into like we have this like real bonding over like our path. He was a very smart guy. He knew a lot about strength and conditioning, so we kind of like geeked out over that. And then he's actually now we still speak now.
Great. Nice.
3 weeks
Yeah.
later, I've been helping him out with how to kind of get members into his gym and start his apprenticeship program because he's a one-man band. I was like, man, you got to get some more people in here. And here's how you can start to breed your own coaches. So I think that's just something that's really, he was an ex CrossFit guy as well. And I think probably what I did miss from this holiday was basically what you said. The beauty of going to CrossFit gyms is you just really feel like you're a part of a community
Yeah,
instantly.
absolutely.
Like you don't need to say anything, but the moment you step in and like you see people getting after the same type of training as you,
Mhm.
you just have this kind of instant connection with them, right?
Yeah.
And you can just, and that is, I think when you're traveling and you're on holiday, a lot of time you spent on your own or with the person that you're traveling
Yeah.
with. It's nice to then just step into a place and feel like it almost feels like home. And I think going to that Strong 11 gym, I felt that. I was like, this is really nice. I came back home, back to Cami. I was like, oh, I've missed that on this holiday, going into CrossFit gyms and just like chatting to owners and
Yeah.
speaking to them. And so I wasn't able because then we went to Lisbon and the Algarve. I didn't end up having any CrossFit gyms within the city place as well. So that was my one experience, but
Yeah.
it was a reminder on how cool it is going into CrossFit gyms.
Right.
Um,
Also, like how much it matters that the community that you build, um, it, the value of that, for so many things, for the people that are in the community on a daily basis, but people coming in from other parts of the world just to see your community for that couple hours and how much that can impact them down the road, right? Because now it's like for you, you've it sounds like you're building a really good relationship with this person in Greece that you otherwise would have never met in your life. And for me, it's just I have this growing appreciation for what the CrossFit community looks like, and what it can be and what it can mean to people. Um, Especially right now, trying a lot of people are asking questions like, where does CrossFit go after the 2024 games and what happens are right of like what happens to the sport, and what happens to the community. But I think one thing is clear is that the community itself is going to be okay because everyone values it so much and will do what they can to uphold it and to maintain it and to look out for its members and look out for the people that come in for a day or stay there for a year or so.
yeah.
Um, that's great. One thing, I guess, one thing to kind of put this all a bow on it is, we're talking about work, we're talking about movement, exercise. The last thing just to touch upon is life, because when you're on holiday, that brings together a lot of big questions in your life about, where am I at here? Where, with me and the person I'm with, if you're traveling with someone, in your case with your wife. For me, it was me and my wife and my two kids. And the big point of us going to California was for the first time for my youngest daughter to go to America. But the second for my two kids to meet my twin sister's four kids, for the six of them to hang out for the first time. And every day that was a gift. And it's something that I look back on super fondly, and in the sense of this is the relationship that they have, and this is the relationship we want them to have. We need to work on this in the sense that we should make time every week to say hi, in any sense, texting, FaceTime, anything like that. But that set the tone for you know where I am in my life, as a father, as a family member, to be able to preserve that sense of family with my family members, my brother, my sister, my mom, my cousins, all these other people. For you, what was the impact of of the holiday on your life?
Okay, so I think there were some lessons in holidaying
Yeah.
that we basically took away.
Yeah.
Number one is that we're done with cities,
Okay.
right? So this is less like personal and spiritual. This is more like in future
More
holidays, I'm
practical.
done with cities. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think going to Athens and Lisbon, two very beautiful cities.
Yeah.
But the moment we were there and like back into like being in closed quarters and having a lot of people, we just had this very natural instinct to push away from that.
Especially that since that's where you're
That's
from.
where we're from, right? And I think that's what we have here all the time. And again, holiday for me is about changing up the environment, experiencing something new. And I think every time we stepped into a busy place, it was like we both felt resistance. And then the moment we got into like quiet, small little towns and nature and seaside, it
Yeah.
felt very like, okay, this is what we want.
Absolutely.
So big lesson there, I think. point that you raised, like we moved around a lot, and I think we probably moved around too much on this holiday. So holidays in the future, I want to have probably we want to spend a bit more time in just one place or move in close proximity to that place because we lost a lot of days traveling. Like going just from Greece to Portugal doesn't look like very far on a map, but when you account the leaving your hotel to arriving in a new one, it's like 12, 14 hours.
Yeah.
It's a whole day gone. So that's another thing. Um, I think holidays are also that's just the holiday side of things. Um, I mean, I had an amazing time with my wife. It was really great to also meet some of her French family. The first 5 days was spent with them, and they basically speak hardly any English.
Okay.
So that really put my French to
But
the
you've been working
test.
on it,
I've been
so
working a lot, and it was great. My French accelerated very fast in those 5 days, but it was also really tiring. Like having to speak in French all the time and think in French. I think by the end of it, I think they forgot that I'm still learning it, and they would just speak to me like I was a native.
that's a good sign then, yeah?
It's a good sign, but when you're 2 minutes in and you realize you have no
You
idea,
maxed out your cadence.
you lost focus for a second,
Yeah.
and now you have no idea what they're saying.
Mm,
But I didn't want to crush them because they were just so comfortable, like
yeah.
telling me about a life story. I'm looking them dead in the
You're
eyes,
going like,
like
"Way,
I have
way."
no idea. No, and I think Tammy could see that by the end of that little trip, she was like, "You're getting tired, aren't you?" I was like, I'm trying really
Hey,
hard, but it's when people forget that you're still learning.
yeah.
Anyhow, but that was really nice to meet family and obviously spend really quality time with my wife. That was really great as well. I think other realizations are something I always wrestle with when I'm on holiday is remembering that holiday isn't reality, if you know what I mean. So I
It's
have this
like, it's a little
tendency.
too rosy?
Yeah, I think it's like I have this tendency to go somewhere on a holiday and be like, I'm always thinking like, is there somewhere I can live? That's just a question I always
Mm,
think about. You assess the qualities of a place.
yeah,
It's like, what are the pros? What are the cons? If I lived here, where would I live? And then you start thinking, what would my day look like?
yeah.
But when you're on holiday, when life is, you just do what you want and there's no real agenda, it can sometimes be a little misleading and right, and it can make you compare what life back home is relative to what you have, and I think that can pull you into a false sense of what's the word? It's not, and it's just not, it's apples and oranges. It's two completely
Yeah,
different things, right? But when you're there, you don't realize it.
right.
Um,
Like seeing where the grass is greener on the other
yeah,
side.
yeah, exactly. But then being able to realistically remember, okay, this is not. You got to think, what would life actually be like if I had the job that I had now?
Yeah.
What would your day to day look like? And so, there's definitely days of that, just thinking about that kind of stuff.
Mm,
But ultimately, coming out of it was just, a lot of gratitude
mm,
for what I have in my life
yeah,
in general,
yeah.
Hong Kong and the place that we live in, and, all the beauty that it has, my job, my team, my family, my health. I think holidays always give me that opportunity to reflect on the things that I really treasure and I'm really grateful for. And I always come home with a new sense of, yeah, just gratitude and appreciation for life, the simple things. Yeah, what about you?
I mean, I guess my experience was different in the sense that it was less of a holiday of like, can I live here? Of like, oh, this is actually homecoming. I'm at my sister's house. I'm with my brother. I'm
Yeah.
with my mom. So, family's been very important to us, especially in the last few years since my dad died in 2020. And, we always look for how can we reunite? Actually that was the reason why we were able to come was, my dad had he had certain like bank accounts in the Philippines and apparently had like enough money that it was billed to my mom eventually. And for this
That's good
specific
to hear.
trip, yeah, like it basically like one of these accounts basically bankrolled the ability for my family to fly out because for four people to fly from Hong Kong to Los Angeles is like the price of like a small used car.
Yeah.
So there was that.
Thank you, Mr. Tuazo.
Yeah, pops, thanks. And there was a good time. Um, and it was just a matter of where am I at in my life, and am I doing everything I need to secure a good life for my kids, for my little girls, and and that for me includes that they know where they come from, where their family is and that they value that. Because, you know, I have cousins who I grew up with who live down the street from me, and I'm still close to them now. You know, one of them is getting married next year, and she wants me to be part of her wedding as like a MC or something.
Oh
Mallory, you
no.
need to clarify that. But
I
anyway,
need to
I'm
reach out
in.
to Mel, give her a heads up.
but but in that sense of like I have a responsibility. I have a duty as a father, as a family member to uphold these traditions, this relationship. Because you know, these aren't family isn't a passive thing. It's very much an active relationship, right? You can let it thrive or you can kind of let it kind of like go by the wayside. And that happens in, you know, if you think about your old high school friends, that happens.
Every
Yeah,
relationship.
for sure.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a very strong reminder of why it is so important to just update each other. You know, if you're just texting in a family group, um, and just keep each other um, in the back of your mind because you know family's the most important thing. That's the one thing that our guy Lou told me before I left. He's like, just remember this, Chris. Is like family is the most important thing, and he reminded me like just he said those words exactly before I left the office here on my last day, and it couldn't have been truer. And so I really appreciate that reminder, and it just makes me think about what I'm grateful for, what I'm fortunate to have. Um, and yeah, like this little bracelet, my brother-in-law Jackson, he got really into knots, tying knots, and then anytime he has an opportunity, he'll teach me how to tie a reef knot or like a sailor's knot or some weird named knot from some sailor in the 1600s or something like that. And then he decided to make everyone like their family bracelets. So like I guess this is our thing now. Like those little things that you build those relationships on these all these little moments that mean so many things. So it's a gift. And I really appreciate my family. I love them very much. I miss them when I'm not with them. But I look forward to the next time that I get to see them.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Sounds like we both had a good time away. And it
Yeah.
sounds like we also both come back feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, but there's things that we're gonna learn and take away for our next holidays.
100%.
Yeah, from these times.
Yeah. So, you know, sad to leave, but glad to be here. And I'm excited for what we have going on next because it's going to be a busy few months for the process. And we look forward to showing you guys what that looks like.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Chris.